things are starting to piece together now. Lara Trump is now the co-chair of the Republican Party, the daughter-in-law of Donald Trump. Donald Trump is the presumed nominee for the party. They haven't had their convention yet. That's why people are saying he's the presumptive nominee. It hasn't been made official yet, but he's got the delegates. He's got it done. But it's coming together in this way. Donald Trump would do everything he can. Donald Trump's surrogates and his family and other ding-dongs who are in support of him will do everything they can do to make you think that it is a runaway win for Donald Trump. He's got the black vote in his pocket because he's got a mugshot and he sells sneakers and all the other nonsense. Oh, it's indictments. Black people are criminals. Oh, Donald Trump's a criminal. They're going to vote for him. The Latin community, they're going to vote for Donald Trump for much of the same reasons, they say. It's just racism run amok. But what they're doing is trying to flood the zone with as much bullshit as they can to convince Americans, even people who aren't going to vote for Trump, that it's a done deal. He is overwhelmingly supported by the American people. And that's just not true. It's not even true of Republicans. Yesterday's primary results in Pennsylvania, they lay it bare. And this is what is freaking them out, which is causing them to rely upon voter interference tactics, voter suppression tactics, which Lara Trump, in a clip I'm getting ready to play, lays it all out. That is the plan for the Republican Party in the 2024 presidential election, is to interfere in the election with paid poll workers. She says it with her mouth, but let me very briefly talk about these results here in Pennsylvania. Nikki Haley's been out of the presidential race for the Republican nomination for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. She disappeared. Where's Nikki Haley now? She's not on the media circuit. She's not talking to anybody. She's not doing press conferences. She's certainly not doing rallies or campaign events. Yet, last night, she got almost 160,000 votes in Pennsylvania. Almost 160,000. That's as of right now. I mean, greater than 95% of the vote it's in. There's a few scant precincts and votes that are coming in. But she got almost 17% of the vote in a critical state like Pennsylvania. That doesn't portend good things for Donald Trump's candidacy in 2024. So, here, I want to play this clip from Lara Trump yesterday on Eric Boling, the guy who got unceremoniously fired for sharing his own dick pics of himself with staffers at Fox News. He's a real gem. She's talking to him on Newsmax about what their plan is for this 2024 election. And she references not having their hands tied. That's not the words to use. Maybe it is. I'm not quoting her. But they're no longer encumbered by certain court cases and precedences relative to Republican voter suppression anymore. They can kind of do what they want to do, and they're going to take full advantage of there no longer being these boundaries set for the Republican Party. And then I'm going to read 3 paragraphs from an Atlantic article explaining exactly what she's talking about and just how dangerous it is for America that is already on the brink of not being a democracy anymore. First, Lara Trump and Eric Boling.
Watley, the chairman, and I have been at the RNC, and obviously we've been working really hard. I think the most recent thing to report is that we are working hard on election integrity, and we just announced last week that we have 100,000 committed people who are going to be trained as poll workers. So, Eric, leading up to this election, I think we can all see the most important thing, aside from getting out the vote, is protecting that vote. We now have the ability at the RNC not just to have poll watchers, people standing in polling locations, but people who can physically handle the ballots. We want people all across this country.
Can we do this? I want to hear. This is really fascinating to me. So yeah. You have 100,000 people who are they? I think I saw paid at one point, but whatever, irrelevant. But so they will be stationed inside polling places. I didn't even know you could do that. Tell us about it.
Yeah. So there was a moratorium for about 40 years on the RNC actually training people to work in these polling locations and the tabulation centers where the mail-in ballots come in. And last year, the judge who implemented that passed away, so that was lifted. And that gives us a great ability as we head into what I assume everyone understands is the most important election of our lifetime. So we have this ability. These are volunteers, most of these people. Protectthevote.com. If people want to join our team, we train them to actually work in these polling locations, and think about how much better off that makes us in terms of transparency, Eric. We all know 2020 was not all on the up and up. People had a lot of unanswered questions. We can never repeat that. So in addition to these poll workers, we're going to have lawyers in all the major polling locations across.
First of all, this is the co-chair of the Republican National Committee who thinks that because a judge died, the ruling of their court disappears. That's not how it works, you abject dumb shit, Lara Trump. It's not the person who's the judge and their ruling goes away when they do. They make a ruling for the court. You idiot. Stop putting people who are morons into high positions, whether that be electing or nepotism. Come on. So I want to read from this Atlantic article that explains what is happening here and what predicated that decision in the first place. And it's all Republican dirty tricks, Republicans' efforts to squelch democracy in America. Here's the Atlantic headline. The Republican Party emerges from decades of court supervision. After being bound by a consent decree for 35 years, the Republican National Committee is now free to continue its ballot security campaign. 35 years after it was first imposed, a judge has lifted a consent decree barring the Republican National Committee from pursuing ballot security measures. In their 1981 lawsuit to stop the RNC from engaging in certain practices at the polls, the Democratic National Committee attested that in a New Jersey gubernatorial election, the Republican National Committee had sent sample ballots to communities of color and then had the names for each ballot returned as undeliverable removed from voter rolls. Democrats also alleged that the RNC hired off-duty cops to patrol majority-minority precincts wearing National Ballot Security Task Force armbands. These details were enough to secure a consent decree between the two party organizations and the court in 1982, stopping the GOP from engaging in such voter intimidation practices. Except Democrats alleged they didn't stop. The consent decree was updated in 1987 after Republicans created a voter challenge list of black voters from whom letters had been returned as undeliverable, with an RNC official saying that the list could, quote, keep the black vote down considerably, unquote. The decree was modified again in 1990 after a court ruled that the RNC had violated it by not telling state parties about its provisions, which had led to the North Carolina Republican Party sending 150,000 postcards to potential voters listing voting regulations in an apparent attempt at intimidation. The GOP violated the court order again in 2004 after yet another voter challenge list targeted black voters. With that history of behavior in full view, federal courts moved to allow the decree to expire in 2017, a decision that was finalized Tuesday. This is an article from 2018, finalized Tuesday by a federal district court. For the first time in 3 decades, the Republican National Committee can pursue ballot security measures without court preclearance. What do you think is going to happen now that the handcuffs are off? They're no longer bound by a court ruling to stop intimidating voters of color, to stop having people erroneously removed from the voter rolls. These are not just dirty tricks and tactics. This is anti-democracy at play. And Lara Trump is broadcasting on national television that they're ready to get back at it. We have people who are going to handle the votes. Republicans. We witnessed what took place after 2020 when a mob of white MAGA psychos attacked a voting precinct or the counting facility in Detroit. We witnessed it in Philadelphia. We witnessed it in Atlanta, all predominantly black areas. And they're going to do it again. They're going to do it again, especially because they're losing their asses in Pennsylvania. This is why it's important, even if Donald Trump doesn't look like he's going to win, we have to show up in such incredible, overwhelming numbers at the polls to stop their dirty tricks, their illegal voter suppression tactics. They're not even shy about their criminality, about their anti-democracy tactics. They're talking about it openly. What do you think? I'd love to know. We can talk about it in the comments below. You can also call, leave me a voicemail, 714-576-4054. You can email me, as always, daily@dollemore.com. I'd love to hear from you. If you appreciate what I do and you want to help support this work, you want to help support me making these videos, you can help produce them. Click the join button below. For $2 a month, you can become a channel member on YouTube, or you can go over to my Patreon page, patreon.com/IDoubtIt podcast. Follow me on the social media if that's your thing. I'm at Dollemore everywhere, and I will see you next time. Until then, be genuine and take care of one another.